Hey, everybody, thank you for joining us. We're going to just take a minute here to do a little bit of housekeeping, make sure that we have all of the attendees in the room before we get started. Um, a couple of things that we just want to make sure all of you know. If you have a question, we have a heck of a team here who can answer even really specific questions about the use of Holistiplan or with Zocks or for any of our panelists here. So please make sure that you put those questions in the Q&A. Some of you will still put them in chat, we understand, but if we can keep them in Q&A, then we can organize them a little bit better. So we've still got people entering in the room, but it looks like we should go ahead and get rolling. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Matt Howard. I'm the chief evangelist for Zocks, and we've got some really great things lined up for you today. So Kate Laws from Holistiplan is going to kick us off with the Holistiplan perspective on the partnership that we have with them, which is I'm at a conference right now, and I had somebody, Kate, I was going to tell you this. I had an advisor came up to me and said, "I love the Holistiplan integration. It's so great for meeting prep and all of the things we're going to talk about today." So that just literally happened to me this morning. Jim Hardiman is our EVP of product, and he's going to do a live demo of what the integration looks like. And then, of course, the main event. And the main event is going to have us talk to real advisors who are using all of this integration. And please, again, put your answers or questions in the Q&A. So we've got Kate Laws from Holistiplan, and we've got Jim Hardiman, our EVP of Product, and our panelists. We got Larry Sprung from Mitlin Financial, Brian Laughlin from Three Bridges Planning, Kate Theobald from Sherrill and Hutchins, Carrie Jackson from Fish and Associates, Ryan Townsley from Town Capital. They're all active Zocks and Holistiplan users, and we're here to show all of you what is working exactly. So, Kate, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect, Matt. That was quite an introduction, and what a great layup for you being at that conference today and getting to talk to somebody about the integration, how it works. I'm excited to hear from all of our panelists today. It's so fun to see people live in action using this with their clients and just see how it streamlines current processes. So it leads perfectly into kind of Holistiplan's side of things that I'll hop into now. But at Holistiplan, we're hoping to take something that is very complex, like tax planning, insurance planning, eventually estate planning, and make it something that's not for our top earners. Make it something that is very available to everyone, for your clients and for yourself. Historically, tax planning has been something that nobody wants to touch, and so Holistiplan from the jump has been a company that works to try to make that something that's very approachable, very digestible. The integration unlocks a lot of things for us. We love working with Zocks. They're a great partner for us to have. But it takes all of these tax analyses and insights that we're able to gather in Holistiplan and pull them directly into your meeting notes to be able to talk to with the client, making it readily available to be able to walk through, and making it something that really streamlines that whole process, connects your tech stack together to be able to talk to each other and make sure that you're on the same page. And also just making that follow up with the client a lot easier. It's great to do a lot of planning for somebody, but if we don't have any sort of follow up after the fact, it doesn't serve our client a whole lot. And so Zocks is a really great tool to kind of integrate with and come pull that information for us. And why this partnership matters, we love partnering with Zocks. I'll probably say it 1,000 times on this webinar. They're great to work with. But it really provides those real kind of tax optimizations live in client meetings. We have all that information in Holistiplan, but being able to sit in front of the client, ask Zocks questions, have them pull up different pieces of information about the client pretty immediately. Jim will actually show this later in the presentation, but being able to ask a question on the fly and get an answer that is helpful to the client is something that Holistiplan really values in a partner, to be able, again, to take that complex situation and make it something that's easy to talk about with the client, and also make the advisor look like they're well prepared. That's the goal, right? To make sure we're delivering good news and we're doing it well. And so Zocks has a really great integration with us to make that happen.
All right. So, Kate, thank you for showing us all of that love. We truly love you guys too. And I mean, anytime that there is this level of a two-way integration, we're just finding that the advisors just find it so unbelievably valuable. So, Jim, why don't you go ahead and take it away and show us how to do this?
Fantastic. I'm going to start sharing my screen here if I can get the presentation right here. All right. So Kate and I talked about, well, I'll set up a little bit of the background here. So, I, as the Zocks advisor, I've been working with the Reynolds family for a while here. I've got my Zocks and Holistiplan accounts connected together. I'm not going to go back through kind of the discovery meeting, but you can kind of assume we did a discovery meeting. We learned about the family. We got them set up in our CRM. We started to get them set up in our various systems. And then in between those engagements, we've received a tax return back in 24, and then we just got one most recently for their 2025 return. So I'm going to show a little bit about what that looks like, and Kate's going to kind of drive this part of the discussion. But while I'm uploading the return, you can see how simple this is. And Kate, I'll let you talk over as I'm starting to upload what it looks like to process a tax return quite easily here in Holistiplan.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So, like you said, in this kind of case study that we're doing here with the Reynolds family, we've been doing tax planning for them before, where they've actually already sent us our tax return and we've uploaded it into the system. But we're showing you here how simple it is. It really is just that dragging and dropping of the PDF, being able to upload that in under 60 seconds using our optical character recognition software. We always mention that. That's kind of the magic of Holistiplan. That's able to read in the 1040 and give you the same answer every single time. And so we actually can hop straight into the report and get started in there. So after that 1040 processes, this is what it spits out immediately. With almost no manual entry, we get this immediate overview of the client's entire 1040. I want to point out here that our key figures at the top is actually what Zocks is able to pull in on their integration side. So being able to pull all of that tax information from the jump and being able to do something really valuable with it is what we look for like at Holistiplan, right? To be able to make that integration very seamless. Now, in the 1040, there's a lot of information, but we're going to go ahead and scroll to the marginal tax bracket section first. I'm going to point out some high kind of quick wins with clients, and we'll hop down to the observations after that. But the marginal tax bracket, we always tell clients this is something that will never show up on their 1040. So even if we're talking about taxes with the client, we're not able to show them something as digestible as this. Not only here's where you fall in the marginal tax bracket, but how much of your income is actually being taxed at what amount. So this graph is really helpful and is normally a pretty big wow moment for a client to immediately say like, oh, I didn't even know like that I fell into the 22% bracket. Does that mean that all my income is taxed at 22%? You can say, no, it's actually a waterfall effect. We start in that 10%, work our way up to the 22. If we're looking to do, say, a Roth conversion with a client, that graph on the right-hand side actually gives us a really good picture of, hey, if you're looking to do a Roth conversion, we've got that space in the 22% bracket if we want to make that work for this year. So pretty quickly, you can make it a digestible piece of information and set them up well for future projection conversations. The rest of the tax report is going to outline anything that would appear in your client's 1040. If they itemize, we'd have Schedule A. It's going to show their IRMA surcharges for the next couple of years. Schedule B is something that people love to hit on. It's going to show where all their income sources come from. So it's going to outline all of this with nice graphs, make it really digestible. But we're going to hit towards the bottom here, actually with our observations. And this will help our kind of continuing the conversation into Zocks here in a second. But we're going to look down about 6 observations down first. We had talked to Paula about different goals that she had, and one of those was setting up a retirement plan for her business. Our observation is actually going to point that out. That's a good idea for her tax-wise looking into this next year. We have a few kind of added pieces of information for this client. They didn't talk about doing something like a DAF with us, but our observations is going to point that out. It's going to say, hey, your client gives in excess of $10,000 every year. You might want to tell them they should consider a DAF and see what that would look like for them. Something else that Paula mentioned to us was adding a vehicle to their business. Again, the Holistiplan report is going to point out immediately Schedule C doesn't actually include any expenses on line 9, which is for all of your vehicles. So something that Paula mentioned in a past conversation, you're actually able to show her live how this would help give them that sort of tax break that they're looking for. And you as the advisor just get to upload the return and kind of see the value immediately at the bottom. It's going to point out all those different observations for you and make it really easy pieces of conversation to bring into that client conversation. And again, like we mentioned earlier, we can have all these tax analyses and have the opportunity for good conversation, but if we're not going to move forward and actually do some planning, follow through with the client, then what good is kind of having this conversation. And so that's where Zocks is able to come in, and Jim is going to show us actually where we're able to pull this information and do something really valuable with it. So Jim, I'll hand off to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kate. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've been working with this client for a while, and we just went through some of the analysis. And now I'm going to show what it looks like, what's called meeting prep in Zocks, where we can utilize the data. So, for meeting prep, we're going to pull data from Holistiplan as part of our total picture for working with the client. But the same pull integration can support things like answering emails, filling out forms, and doing basic ad hoc queries in our Ask Anything capability. But based on time today, we're just going to show our meeting prep. So looking on my calendar, I'm getting ready to meet with the Reynolds. And Zox's meeting prep can run on an automated schedule. So it looks 2 weeks in advance at the calendar, and it can run as far as 2 weeks in ahead of time, or even as close as an hour beforehand. And you can always rerun as new information becomes available, or you get closer to that meeting. This is all template driven. And so Zocks will come up with a proposed agenda by analyzing information from past conversations, looking at open tasks in the CRM, or anything that I manually add here. Or maybe I have set agenda items that I use every time I have a check-in call with clients. And then we start to summarize the information pulling from the various sources. So some of that data might come from, for instance, a past meeting, but it also can come from my CRM. So when was the last time we met? What did we talk about? Here, to Kate's point earlier, through our integration with Holistiplan, the client actually sent us an email following up on that whole discussion around leasing a vehicle. And their simple ask was, we're looking to spend $500 a month with a 50-50 split between personal and business use. Kind of what would be the impact to their taxes? And Zocks actually did this automatically. It connected to Holistiplan, pulled down their marginal rate, looking at the Schedule C income, and then came up with an estimate of what they might be able to save when applying this new business expense for her business. So just another cool way that we can integrate and leverage all of the data in Holistiplan. Scrolling a little further here, you can see household details. Again, this is coming from multiple sources, in this case, CRM and past conversations. And then I want to go down a little bit further here, specifically to the tax planning area. So you can see when we looked at Holistiplan earlier, we had their 2024 taxes on file, as well as the new 25 return. And you can start to see here, I've asked Zocks just to put it in a side-by-side comparison showing year over year. So you can see here those key values that were at the top of the report that Kate constructed, or we analyzed. You can see all of that in a side-by-side comparison. And the nice thing is that you can also use the Ask Anything assistant like we talked about earlier. So just quickly, I want to show how some of the things, and because I'm a terrible typer and during a live demo, I'm going to just copy my question. And so this Ask Anything capability, I'm asking Zocks to go to Holistiplan and review the 2024-25 tax returns and give me the high level analysis or comparison where there's key differences. So you can see that Zocks quickly attached and connected to the Holistiplan, brought back that data, and then walk through that high level analysis. So you can use Zocks, again, this Ask Anything kind of on the fly, and utilizing any of our integration sources, including if the best answer is, the best data is coming from Holistiplan, as well as incorporate, a number of data sources in your meeting prep. And so you can see that down here, we make references to data that we've pulled from the calendar, from the CRM, from Holistiplan, from the connected financial planning tool, and the like. And so it's quite robust, pulling that data from multiple sources and making it available for the advisor to walk in prepared for the meeting. But also during a live meeting, this can be used as a live view, run it as a sidecar in support of the advisor. And the advisor can, again, ask questions on the fly, even during the conversation. So pre-meeting support, live meeting support, and post-meeting support, we can utilize all of this integrated data. So Matt, I don't want to take too much away from the panelists. So Kate and I wanted to give a quick demo for those that maybe aren't familiar with Zocks or Holistiplan or how it works together. But I would recommend that if you are looking for more information, our website's a great source. We do have our integrated help, so you can search quickly on Holistiplan here. And then there also was a very in-depth demo that we did last year in the October timeframe. So if you look on our YouTube channel, there was an hour-long demo that we did with the Holistiplan team where we dove deeper into the product. So lots of good details there.
And if you are a current Zocks user, the Zocks Academy also has some really great stuff in there to truly help you implement. Now, as we move to the meat and potatoes of this, I want to use an analogy that I personally love, which is so the advisors are the top of the Oreo cookie, and the tech stack, like Holistiplan, is the bottom of the Oreo cookie, and Zocks is the creamy middle that makes everything taste really good. And so now we just heard from Zocks and from the bottom part of the cookie, and now we're going to talk to the top part of the cookie. So these are all of the advisors, the wonderful cookies who are using this every day, all day, in order to make it so that they can provide even better services to their clients. Because here's the deal, everybody. You can really be a one-stop shop, right? And we're going to talk to advisors who are really using this to help them provide even more complex advice from a financial planning standpoint to all of their clients. And we're going to start with Larry. All right, Larry. So I think it's great that we're starting with you because the question that they teed up to me was, you don't use this as much as your team does, but your whole firm really does use Holistiplan. Why don't you talk a little bit about what that time saving has been and how that's helped you be a better advisor?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about cookies, Matt. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm really hungry. But thank you. Yes, both tools are amazing in of themselves, but when you combine them together, there is an incredible power. And I know how to use them. I'm just not necessarily using them every day. My team is using them in really the preparation as we were just shown, getting ready for that meeting. That's an important piece. During the meeting, it can be used to, if there are specific questions, and then the follow-ups while you're planning for a family. And it's really significantly reduced the time that we need to prepare and follow up for meetings. And I'll give you a live example. We were with a family today that has a complicated financial situation. They're in distribution phase, taking money out of IRAs, have Social Security, may need additional income. And we sat with them today and we had a tax projection, we had Holistiplan up, we had Zocks with the notes in the background, and it really helped facilitate probably more than we would have ever gotten to get done in an hour. We got it done, and the family was ultimately so pleased with what the outcome is and how we were able to answer those questions. And then, not to mention the amount of time saving, right, with regard to the team. They didn't have to spend hours. They spent, really minutes preparing and then minutes in the follow-ups afterwards because everything was captured during that meeting.
Well, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about the time savings, but this is actually what we're starting to hear your clients expect, a much more speedy return on information, because that's what everybody's so used to. Everybody's attention span is getting shorter and shorter, and we in financial services need to be able to respond to that quickly. All right, Brian, we're going to move to you. All right, now you're taking this with a little bit different of approach, right? And you're doing custom stuff. So tell everybody about what you're doing.
Yeah, we like to view the pre-meeting work kind of like a doctor's chart, where the staff will throw the folder on the door and read it a minute before they walk into a meeting. We use it like that, and specifically with Holistiplan, there's lots of tax issues that come up all the time with our clients, and it's very easy to get them confused. Did we do this thing or not? Is this client doing it or the other client, and so forth. So we spent a lot of time iterating a prompt that just helps us organize this. And I'll take a moment and read one of them to you. The idea is that this information is scattered all through the defaulted pre-meeting work, and we're putting it together in one spot and looking at it right before the meeting. So here's how it reads. List the specific tax planning actions for these contacts in bullet point form. Include strategies that repeat every year and future strategies that have been considered. Also, who is their CPA or accountant? What is the status of this year's required minimum distribution? What is the plan for their health savings account contributions? If they don't qualify for HSA, state that. What is the plan for IRA contributions? Include traditional Roth and simples, backdoor conversions and everything. Detail all discussed savings, including non-retirement accounts. If over the age of 70, what is the plan for qualified charitable distributions? If under the age of 70, state the calendar year that each contact turns 70. If they have non-qualified accounts, state that. Do they have a donor advised fund? If so, what's the plan to fund it? What charities have they given to in the past or in the future? Now, that sounded like a lot, and it is, and we built that one segment at a time. But what it did was it hit all these main points, and in bullet point format on the first page of our pre-work, it just leaves out the information that doesn't count for that client and includes what does, and it brings you up to speed real quick. As soon as you read it, everything comes back to you. It makes it pretty easy.
Well, Brian, you just opened a big can of worms because
Yes.
everybody's like, hey, can you cut and paste that prompt? But I want to talk about the prompt real quick before we move to another advisor, which is
Yeah.
it's garbage in, garbage out, everybody. People seem to forget that that's how the internet works. You're wildly specific, Brian. That was wonderfully specific. And really, you were asking it to give you the right outputs that you need. It was an iterative process. You didn't get that right exactly where it is the first time. So this is something that all of you need to start working with. When you're working with artificial intelligence, I like to call it augmented intelligence because it really just makes you smarter, stronger, faster, better. You can make it sing. It's like jazz music, right? I mean, he just made a jazz song right there. All of these things talking together and outputting something amazing. Now, Caitlin, you're up next. I can't tell you, when I first started consulting in financial services, one of the things that I used to push all of my advisors would do is to have a CSA in every meeting. Just so the advisor didn't meet everything, and it kind of reduced the pressure on the advisor to be fiercely taking all of the notes. It could pay a little bit closer attention to clients. Tell me about what has changed in your firm with that.
Yeah, so we originally also always had a CSA and advisor in every single meeting. A majority of the CSA's time were prepping for that meeting, sitting in the meeting, and doing the follow-up work. And so this year we were actually able to let one of our CSAs go part-time. She moved across the country, she started a family, and we were able for her to go part-time and not hire anyone in her place because Zocks is doing so much of what she was doing.
So there's two parts of that that I'm going to ask you a follow-up question.
Mhm.
So number one, there is a big fear, right? In the advisor community, we hear this a lot when we're out and about, that AI is going to replace jobs. You allowed your team member to go ahead and move to part-time. Have you heard from any other advisors? Or are there any other advisors who are on this right now who's actually seen this free up at their team's time so that they can do more client-focused things instead of just being keyboard warriors? Does anybody have Caitlin, do you have a response to that? Larry? Okay. Caitlin, why don't you start with you?
Yeah, so we have this one advisor, he was really gung-ho, tech focused, willing to try. And so some of the other advisors are more reluctant, but they're seeing that it can work. And so
Got it.
they are open to that going forward. But
All right,
it's
Larry, what
slower
do you
for them.
Larry, what do you think? Chime in there too.
Yeah, for us, one of the biggest unintended consequences as we started using Zocks and combining it with Holistiplan was the mere fact that the CSA, who normally were relationship manager in our firm, who normally would sit there taking notes, listening to every word, making sure they got it down, they didn't have to do that anymore. So they were learning more quickly. They were understanding because they were listening more to the family to understand rather than take down notes. And it's allowed us to elevate people within the practice more quickly and get them to the next level because they're learning now instead of just necessarily being a scribe.
Right. Well, I don't know, Larry, if you realize you totally queued me up for Carrie's question now, which is you being able to be more present, which, well, I know, Larry, you're a pro at this. But I just, everybody, AI should be that augment. It is an opportunity for you to have a different relationships with your clients in so many ways. Carrie, we just talk a little bit about how this has changed your client meetings and your interactions?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a ensemble practice, so we have for several years always had two people in the room, whether if it was an advisor and a paraplanner, or a CSA, two advisors, however. Um, and we always did it that way. So we had one person dedicated just to taking notes, making sure we didn't miss anything. But we all have terrible handwriting. It was hard to follow up. It was hard to get any sort of organization out of it for our staff. And as an advisor, you need to be able to do your work, drop it, and move on. So being able to have Zocks in the room means we get to put our entire focus on our client. We don't have to worry about anything getting missed because Zocks is going to pick it up. And even if it doesn't come out in the transcription, I love the search function that you can do and just say, hey, what did they say about this? Or what was their home address or whatever? And it will plug it right out for you. So it's made us, better listeners. We've been more deeply engaged with our clients. I think we ask better questions. And we're just, better prepared because with Zocks taking all the notes for us at prior meetings, and in combination with other technology, it just helps us be even more prepared for the next meeting because we know we got the key details ready and we're not missing anything.
When you are all unbelievably busy, and one of the funny things that I talk to a lot of my friends about being in financial services, and the general public doesn't understand the pressure and the responsibility that all of you face every single solitary day. And when a piece of software or tech can reduce that level of stress so that you can be more present and more focused, it's only going to be able to provide better advice. Now, Ryan, we're going to be moving to you now. Now, I'm a little worried about asking you this question, brother, because I think it's going to scare some people, but it's okay. I know that you've got a great response for this, which is you've said that Zocks is doing the job of a full-time employee. That's a big statement, dude. So break it down.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, and I'll say this about Zocks and Holistiplan is, as advisors, we have an almost seemingly endless pool of tech that we could choose to use, and some of them add a ton of value, but there's few out there that fundamentally change the way you do business. And Zocks and Holistiplan fundamentally change the way I do business, right? But when I say replace a full-time employee, it didn't change the fact whether we did or did not hire. It just changed how we hired, right? So instead of hiring a client service associate, we decided to go the route of hiring a financial planner because Zocks was doing the job of the client service associate. So we could give someone else a different opportunity, which just felt like a much better path for our firm. And one of the most interesting things when I decided to branch out, not be a solo anymore and start to add to the team was, how am I ever going to find time to train someone, right? Where, if you're already busy, training a new employee, especially doing it the right way, is just going to make you even busier. We've actually been using Zocks to write training manuals, checklists, and call it standard operating procedures based on the meetings we've had using the Claude interface, and it's produced some incredible results. Incredible.
Well, Caitlin, I want to come back to you a little bit with this because, so you are an ensemble practice and you're trying to get more of the other advisors a little bit more on board with this. Is the time saving, cost savings, and reduction of stress, is that helping move the needle with those later adopters?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you. When people actually see it in action, everything flipping changes. So, okay. Now, so Brian, I'm coming to you now. All right. This
All
has been
right.
about, what's that? You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Because I don't actually, this is the deep, I'm hoping people are going to want you to cut and paste stuff again, dude. I'm just going to warn you, I think. That's okay. All right. You are able to really now see the tax strategies across your entire book of business. So how has that changed how you communicate with your clients and really what you're doing as a firm?
Oh, you asked the right guy this question. So I think it's changed my business. We have moved, we declare ourselves to be tax planners now. And it's because of Holistiplan and Zocks it really elevates that experience. Tax planning is an agenda item on every single meeting we have. And we pull these topics I just mentioned earlier, whichever applies to the client, we're just constantly putting in front of it. We have this philosophy that a dollar saved in taxes is sweeter than a dollar earned in the market. Like clients light up when you save them $1,000, $2,000 in taxes, but if you make them $2,000 in the market, it really is not that big of a deal. So you become valued a little differently. So it's just a big part of our business. Also, you had mentioned the observations. In those observations, I mean, honestly, there was a point in time where I've never even implemented a donor advised fund or a QCD for a client ever, and it was being suggested, and I've got dozens of donor advised funds set up at this point, helping our clients, and QCDs are standard operating procedure for everyone who's qualifies by age and is charitably inclined. So it really has influenced and moved my business in the direction of planning.
Before we move on to the next round, does anybody else have anything that they want to add? Because we've talked about time savings, we've talked about being more, communicative and offering new products and services to your clients, which is real dollars, right, for your practices. But is there anything that, because I'm going to go deep into every one of your practices, is anybody said anything that any of the other panelists want to chime in on or add to before we move on?
Yeah,
All right.
I would just
Oh,
add
good, Carrie.
something real quick. Sorry. One thing else that I love about Zocks is just all the stuff that it picks up that I otherwise or any of my staff wouldn't have written down. So like details on people's vacations, or I had a client the other day whose dad broke his ankles in two different incidents. I wouldn't have necessarily even noted that in detail, but like she referred him up to us and now we're sending him like flowers. I don't know. It creates these connections and deepens the relationship in ways that you just don't have time to do on your own. But because of Zocks, it's capturing all this data that again just shows you're paying more attention to them as people and what they need than just, managing their money. So I just think that that's a value add.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Larry said about pre-work and staff looking things up. We used to have a checklist of all the things that they would look up before a meeting, and it was time consuming. And literally the integration between Zocks and Holistiplan, it does almost all of it. It's just being calculated automatically and stuck onto my pre-meeting report. Saves a ton of time. Time, a lot of times that the staff would look that stuff up, but we'd never even talk about it because we just have to know it all. So it's in some extent it could be wasted time. That it's not wasted anymore when the compute's doing it in the background.
When oh, Ryan, go ahead.
Just wanted to say, like, I feel about Zocks is like it allows me to be the advisor I always wanted to be, but never had the time to truly achieve, or the efficiency, right? Like, I feel like an hour spent in Zocks is like 4 hours spent manually doing something else, right? So it's an amazing tool.
Larry?
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing all of these things that we're talking about as advisors and these two tools together are really insulating us from something that's been talked for a very long time, and that's about fee compression, which I have not seen at all. But what I have seen is the need to provide more services, to pay more attention to families, to give them more personalized service, to add value and substantiate and support the current fees that they're paying. And I think what these tools allow us to do is do just that without a lot of lift, without necessarily adding full-time staff for that, without having to take on, less families to do that. And I think that that's a huge thing that sometimes gets overlooked, but these tools can really effectively help you do.
Yeah. I started out my career as a practice management consultant with the Carson Group. And I remember, Brian, we used to hammer those checklists, man. Like your team's
Yeah.
got to know those checklists. We used to give people examples of checklists, and now a lot of that checklist heavy lift is just being automated, which, from a practice management perspective, anytime that you can make things just more smoothly, not have to continue to replicate and duplicate information in different systems, makes a big thing. And speaking of that, we're going to now switch gears just a little bit and dive a little bit more deeply into each of our panelists' practice. And Ryan, this is again going to open up a big can of worms here because when we use the word MCP, everybody like wants to know what that what this is and how this is working. And you're using MCP with Claude to build something specific. I'm not going to say anything else. You already touched on the training manuals, but can we talk about the other thing that you're using it for?
Yeah, I mean, what at this point, I feel like we're using it for trying to use it for almost everything and just finding endless ways to implement or improve. But it's so building training manuals, building, we used it. So just give you a couple of examples, right? I'd say very bad at creating the visuals like to show clients, right? Like things like what are your investment options, things like that. It's always been something we just talked about in a meeting. So I gave it a task and I said, go ahead and take a look at our last X number of meetings talking about investments and develop a brochure that shows all of our investment options and how they're used and things like that. And it did it within like 6 minutes. Branded, you can teach it skills. So it always uses your colors, your wording, your everything, and really just start to produce using your notes, using all of the meetings upon meetings upon meetings that you've already done to go back and look at all these meetings and pull data in and make it for you. So we've used it to create internal checklists for our new advisors. We've used it to create we work a lot with Constellation Energy retirees because that's the company I worked for 19 years in nuclear power. We used it to create a how to retire from Constellation Energy checklist, which eventually turned into a webinar, which won us a ton of new business. So the opportunities with this integration are just endless.
And so, for those of you, I'm not monitoring the chat, who are twitching right now because they're so concerned about the compliance component, we actually have a CCO on our panel today, which is Caitlin. Yay! All right. So, Caitlin, what from a compliance standpoint,
Yep.
what are some things that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we had like our advisors learned about Zocks. They got really excited about it. They wanted to implement it right away. And of course, me as compliance, I'm like, hey, let's hold off. I need to do due diligence. I need to check things out. Um, but everything checked out. We were really concerned about, is it recording? Are we able to get consent from the other people in meetings? And everything checked out. And you can tell that Zocks knows the regulations, especially this new Reg SP coming out. And they're doing everything they can do to make this as compliant for our industry as possible.
Yeah, it's when we're able to go ahead and say that we built our entire platform with compliance and privacy first, that really resonates with people, and the landscape is consistently changing. And this is going to sound shameless, but I personally want to thank Jim, who's on this call today, because I know that that's a huge thing that he spends a lot of his time paying attention to make sure that we're going to be updating our products and services to, well, reflect what the environment is and how that environment is changing. All right, Brian, we're back to you. So you built some custom prompts for tax planning. You alluded to this earlier, obviously, with the big prompt that you had created. But let's talk about the research process. But okay, so that may be table stakes. I really want to talk to you about accuracy because we hear that all the time. Well, Matt, AI hallucinates all the time. What is your experience with that?
Well, the results sometimes do get a little wordy where they don't need to be, but it's not really inaccurate. I think if you look at the prompt I read to you, there was a reason where I said, if it's not there, then don't mention it because it wants to create something when it doesn't see something. So that was part of the iterations we were talking about. However, in the case with the integration with Holistiplan, it's pulling numbers right from the source. The numbers are accurate. I mean, you know, tax returns don't have pennies, but everything is accurate to the dollar because it all comes straight from the source. So accuracy, I have not had a problem at all with accuracy. I have noticed that it may try to write something because it's looking for something that's not there. And so we engineer the prompts to address that.
Yeah. I had a user come up to me today at breakfast and say, "So when I get the summary, does it need to tell me everything?" And I was like, "Well, you can customize some of that stuff, but I think we've decided to go for more is more in some situations where some of you want the less is more, which is, by the way, is something that is entirely terrible." Okay, Larry, this one's for you. Um, let's talk about connecting, right? There are people on this call who haven't made those integrations and those connections. What's your advice on that?
Oh, I think it's a must do. I mean, it's easy to do. Both of them individually work so amazingly well and will help you save time and be more productive and be more mindful. And then when you connect them together, it's like an exponential function. I was a math major, so it really elevates the whole experience for everybody because now you have more tools. So I would highly recommend that whatever integrations you have the ability to utilize within Zocks, within Holistiplan, hook them up. Worst case, just give it a try. And I think you'll be blown away by the level that it'll bring everything up to because it's all about making things easier, better, faster, and more impactful.
Yeah. Carrie, I have a two-part question because there's a question that came through Q&A. And since you actually are, you said an ensemble practice, right?
Mhm.
Um, how do you overcome or do you need to overcome the idea that the note takers in the room? I hear this all the time, and I might as well, ask you the question. How do you overcome that as an objection, or how do you address that when you're in a client meeting?
We have not really had any objection. They're used to us being in there taking feverish notes. And I've been here 17 years, so
Yeah.
everyone knows me pretty well and knew me when I was coming up as a handwriting note taker. So just for us personally, it really hasn't been an issue. But with new clients, we just let them know and just, I say something like it's just here to take notes and help us be better listeners, and we really have not had any objection at all.
Yeah, Carrie, that's it's interesting because that's one of those things that people are afraid of, but it's fear, false evidence appearing real. It actually rarely happens in any sort of client meeting. Okay, so the second part of the question is a much, much deeper question. Thank you for answering that one. I know that was a little off the cuff, but here you're in a multi-advisor. How does Zocks work when there's so many different people in an ensemble practice using it? And how does that work day to day?
For us, it's been pretty smooth, and I would say part of that is that we're not a huge firm, although we are all female. So having to differentiate several different female voices, we have a lot of female clients, so sometimes there might be 4 or 5 women in the room. How I've tried to combat that is, if I'm using the app on my phone, I will always add the client to the meeting, of course, so that they know who's who. And then I will also add any other team members that are in the room. And I make an effort to address them by name multiple times in the first few minutes so that it generally registers who's who. And for the most part, that works great. Again, like someone else said, the transcription isn't always perfect, but it's just so easy to go in afterwards and say, hey, replace Kathy with Carrie, or, this was Jim, not John, and it just takes a few seconds and fixes it right up. So for us, it hasn't been much of a challenge, but I would definitely encourage you if you're using it not in a Zoom context in a live meeting to just take that time and, hi Kim, nice to see you. Hey Rebecca, how's so and so? And it generally will just pick it up for the rest of the meeting, no problem.
Yeah. Well, I always thought it was funny how a lot of people use and expect perfection, which it's just mean, man. Come on, guys, what are you doing? First off, you don't expect perfection from humans. Why the heck are you expecting it from a piece of software, right? I think that's just bad. What we're looking for, and Brian actually said this, and I'm going to quote him on this, is it's accurate. Now, is it wordy? Yes, but it's accurate, and really, that's what we're looking for from team members and from your technology stack is for it to be accurate. All right, we're going to do a speed round now, and I'm going to I'm asking all of you the same question, but I'm going to go ahead and start with Larry. All right. If you could see something new, right? With something like this Zocks and Holistiplan integration, what would you like to see going forward?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that what I'd like to see is right now, there's no integration with the financial planning tool we use. So that would be great because I think, again, like I said earlier, the more things that we can integrate, the better prepared we're going to be before the meeting, the better prepared we will be with the notes and the follow-ups during and following the meeting, and it will help us with the work that needs to be done after we part with the families we serve. So I'm just excited to see the integrations continue and being able to utilize the ones that we're using on a regular basis.
All right, Brian, what do you want?
I'd like to see a pinning feature where if I highlight something or identify something, it goes to the top of the report because things do get buried in there. I'd love to see, like, for this client, this is important. I would love to be able to like have some kind of command I can say pin to top or something like that.
Wow. Luckily, you have two people on the call who will be able to bring that to light. All right, Caitlin, you're up.
I think it'd be interesting if Zocks, especially with Holistiplan, could look at all our clients that are integrated, and we could ask questions like, who are the top five earning clients? So I guess for firm-wide analytics.
Okay. Uh, Again, I'm wildly unregulated here. Just to tell that's coming. Like that exact thing is like
Great.
it's really close. So I'm really excited. We're gonna do a webinar on that too. So stay tuned. All right, Carrie, what do you got?
Well, it integrates with Right Capital, which is my financial planning software. So that would be my choice if it didn't already do that. Um, I guess the only thing I could think of would maybe be picking up on opportunities for us as planners. So, for example, if they mention a certain planning consideration, like if they have RSUs but they have no plan for dealing with the taxes or what to do with the money, just maybe flagging that for us to make sure that if we somehow miss an offhand comment that's a planning opportunity, that it could be caught.
Okay. Ryan, you're last.
Very similar to Caitlin, but more of like a firm-wide, client book-wide look, like who haven't we talked to in a while? Who did we say we were going to have a meeting with in a week and somehow maybe we didn't have a meeting. So Zach's kind of picking up on that, just a little bit of more of like insight to let's stay in front of our people. Let's talk to them a little more touch points, things like that.
Right. So listen, everybody, if you're not following Zocks and if you're not following me and you're not on the mailing list, we're going to be rolling something out that's going to blow your minds. It's going to solve a lot of this for you. Now, I do understand that Jim is on the call and I don't want to get myself in trouble. So I'm not going to say anything else about it, but I just want you all to pay attention because it's really freaking cool what's coming down the pipeline. So the overall idea here was for us to bring on real advisors and have them share real stories of how they're using Zocks and Holistiplan together to truly be able to provide really unbelievable level of service for their clients. When you can offer new products and services, you can feel more confident when you're going into the meeting because you see the complete picture. This is what your clients want from you. And now all of a sudden, with some of even the other integrations that we have, you can start offering more and more services to your clients because here's the reality of business with organic growth. It is easier to sell a new product to an existing client than it is to get a new client. That's just the rule of business. So many of you already have such deep relationships, being able to offer some other consultative services, some more products and services, like what Brian was talking about, being able to offer things that he's never really offered before. It just makes you look stronger, smarter, faster, better. Now, hey, Leaf, do we have any questions in the Q&A that you want me to bubble up to the top here? Let me see. I'm just going to look. Oh, you know what? Robert actually asked a question, and I'm going to leave this. I'm going to ask Ryan. I'm going to put you on the spot for this. Let's talk about your Claude subscription, right? So this what you're doing is pretty token intensive. So would you mind sharing with everybody the level of Claude that you have?
It's the business, and I did recently upgrade to, I don't know what the exact term is, but the higher level. I was using the original though, and getting plenty done with that. So if you want to test it out, that's a good way to start. We were just my new hire is and me so obsessed with the integration. We've been using it so much that we did upgrade to get more credits. So.
Nice. Well, one of the other things that happens with the upgrade that we know is it also allows you for some very, very interesting and more expansive safety features when it comes to the LLM not being able to use that information as they're parting with their or partnering with our system with that MCP. Kirk Taylor asked, is any plans to integrate with Wealth.com? We're already 100% into Wealth.com. So here's my favorite question. We have a few minutes left, and I don't usually get to do this on webinars because we're usually so tight. Kate, you just heard from all of these wonderful advisors. Is there anything that you'd like to add to kind of put a bow on this relationship with us and your wonderful organization?
It's been so fun to hear kind of how everyone is using it differently. We talk a lot about Holistiplan, and I'm sure Zox is the same way, of being like a Swiss Army knife. Like to buy a Swiss Army knife and to get value out of it, you don't have to use it the same way that your neighbor does. Like everyone can use it differently and still find value. And I feel like that was really evident on the panel today of just seeing how someone accesses the observations differently and someone's using scenario analysis differently and people are doing prompts and Zocs and some people aren't. It's still valuable to them. So that's really cool. But also I think I loved what I think Brian mentioned earlier that like the observations listed at the bottom of Plan used to be foreign to him, like the idea, not foreign, he had heard of them, but things that he wasn't doing with his clients, like donor advised funds, QCDs, and it's become the norm. And that's the goal, right? Like we want this to be something that we're able to implement and make it smooth and make it something that is commonplace for our clients. And Zox also makes it very easy to make it scalable, like to make it happen over and over again. And so it was really cool to hear from everybody on how they're using it. And I think that one really stood out to me from today.
All right, any of the panelists, anything that you guys want to say as we wrap up?
I think from a Holistiplan standpoint, I'd like to add too, Kate, that Holistiplan is equally as good as providing excellent value to your current clients as it is as showing potential value to prospective clients.
Ooh.
Yeah, we love to hear that. We, again, using it in different ways, right? Some is for prospecting, some is for deep tax planning with current clients. So we love to hear stuff like that.
Anybody else? All right. Well, on the screen right now, if you want to get a demo from Holistiplan or you want to get a demo from Zocks, please make sure. If you are a current Zocks user and you realize I'm not using this as much as I probably should, please, dear God, go to Zocks Academy because you'll get to learn so much more. And also, please make sure that you're following not only the Zocks main page on all social media, but also following my stuff, Jim's stuff, any of the executive teams, and of course, follow Kate and the Holistiplan team because our whole goal is to provide you with education on how to use our products and services more effectively in your financial services practice. Because if we do that, everybody wins. You win as the advisor, we win as a supporting company, and most importantly, your clients get even better service. So with that, I want to say thank you all very, 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 very much. Kate, thank you so much, Jim. You guys were amazing. Carrie, Brian, Ryan, Caitlin, and Larry, we are so grateful to have you guys as clients. We really appreciate your support and service and also really appreciate your time because we know that that is of great value. Early on in the chat, we put all of the links to connect with everybody who you see on this webinar. If you have not connected with all of us on LinkedIn, make sure that you do. But for everybody here at Zocks and Holistiplan, I'm Matt Halloran. We'll see you on another webinar very soon.
Thanks, Matt.